All right. Welcome, Bonnie. Please go ahead, introduce yourself, and
Mhm.
we'll go ahead and introduce myself after you.
Okay. I'm Bonnie Kowalik, and I have the privilege of sitting on the board with the Loud Arts Society. And besides that hat, I also work in private practice as a mindfulness coach and a music psychotherapist and leadership consultant here in Vermeer, British Columbia. And I also split my time a little bit in the Okanagan and offer support in Kelowna at a trauma therapy center and a new contract working with the Desert Hills Counseling. So anyway, that's me. I offer a variety of kind of supports and resources to support the mental health of men and families. That's my focus. Um, and so what I'm proposing at this point is in working in collaboration with Loud Art to potentially explore the feasibility, the possibility of launching a youth wellness retreat. So, and that's where we're going to spend a little time in conversation today. So I'll pass it over to you, Tara, and you can share a little bit more about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bonnie. It is an honor to have you on our board. My name is Tara Vahab. I'm the founder and executive director of Louder Society. I'm also wearing a few hats, just like you. I am a practicing artist, but also I'm a therapeutic arts practitioner. And I work with a couple of other organizations as well. I work with Carfax Alberta. They do advocacy for visual artists and best practices. And I also teach at University of Calgary at the continue education. And at Loud Art Society, we enhance mental health through arts and creative practices. And our main focus is at-risk youth and vulnerable individuals and newcomers. But over the past 9 years that we have been operating, we have been slowly expanding our audience and bringing it to the general public and generally everyone who is interested in wellness through arts and creativity. And this year we have decided, we tried this last year to put out the call for a wellness kind of creative retreat for summer for youth. And we did not get that much response. I don't think we were prepared enough. So this year we decided we're going to put together this information session to provide more information about what this is about and how people can benefit from it if they're going to register their youth into this program and what are the possibilities. And we can also learn more about what are the needs out there that we could maybe plan this better. So yeah, I think that's where I am at, Bonnie, but I'm going to let you talk more about what are the possibilities and what are some of the benefits and things that people have to keep in mind.
Great. Thank you, Tara, for that. Yeah, so the intention really was to um, create an opportunity for youth to be able to gather together who maybe had similar concerns, issues, needs around supporting their own mental health in the local community and beyond. So because Invermere tends to be a bit of a hotbed for a lot of folks from Calgary, they have a lot of summer homes here. We thought, well, we would capitalize on not only the Calgary market, but the local market here in Vermeer and trying to build awareness and education around the possibility of extending this resource to youth and families in the community. And with the intention really to support youth to be able to listen from kind of within so they can become more whole and well from the inside out was kind of the original kind of impetus, really to support that internal capacity, resiliency, ability to cope and manage some of the challenges and things that were potentially triggering mental health difficulties or potentially aggravating existing mental health conditions that they may have already had. Just chatting a lot with parents and teachers that I know in my own personal circle. It really seems like there's a high need for a lot of youth to be able to have adequate resources effective resources to support their mental wellness and their emotional well-being. So the idea was, and so even locally, yeah, I went to a networking event and was chatting with somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. And even here in Invermere, the schools are cutting back on their resource funding to support mental health in the education system, relative to having counselors that can meet and support the needs of students within the educational system. So if those types of cuts are happening, then it's going to fall on the shoulders of the community more and more, families and bigger community, like whether it's businesses or nonprofits, to really pick up the slack there, to be able to collaborate and provide you know alternative kind of supports that may be not accessible within the education system for youth. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to really be able to capitalize on the fact that there are these cuts. There is also some threats because that puts us in a position where it creates challenges to funding something like this.
Yeah.
And I think economically, a lot of families, due to their own economic situation, don't have the extra income really to be able to spend the money that is necessary for being able to support and enroll their kids in a summer weekend retreat, wellness retreat, even though they might, advocate for it and really see the benefits of it. I think the financial constraints are a big barrier to access for a lot of families that might want to have their youth enrolled in such a program. So that's why I began to look at, and I think Tara, you and I have discussed the possibility of, can we find access some grant money, some sponsorships from businesses or other folks in the community that are behind and see the need for supporting the mental health and wellness of youth, move, in the moment and moving forward. So that's why I started digging around with some of the resources I mentioned to you earlier, relative to the Columbia Valley Community Foundation as a possible source of funding, as well as the BC Arts Council here in British Columbia, and some of the local service clubs like the Rotary, and there's other ones that we can definitely access. And what's nice about Invermere too is that it's very community minded. So a lot of the local businesses, if they see a viable or a initiative like this, I think there's possibility to be able to access some sponsorships for other resources and things that we might need to support a retreat. So that being said, the idea was for the retreat to kind of run, from Friday to Sunday, with people kind of registering in the late afternoon. And then we would, have a different activity each day. So on the first day, it was more of a, icebreakers where they're accessing nature and going on a nature walk, maybe creating a self-care toolkit, doing a drumming circle with s'mores by the fire, and, that type of thing for the youth to kind of get to know each other and really tap into getting to know themselves again on a deeper level. While in community and within a community of support with other youth. And then day two, you would start with doing some meditations and mindfulness activities that would lead into doing some mask making, as well as doing some yoga for creativity, and doing some rock painting, maybe, doing a talking or a walking stick, doing that type of activity. Engaging and integrating a lot of mindfulness activities like mindful eating, mindful walking, and movement throughout the day. Maybe doing a gallery walk, because there are a few galleries in the area where they can actually access, and learn a little bit more about some of the local visual artists, because there's quite a few here in the valley. And so, yeah, and we do some particular practices like a gratitude or compassion practice as well, and weave that in throughout that day. And then the final day, we'd kind of have a morning activity and do some emotional body mapping and maybe bring together and complete the retreat with a big celebration of gratitude by having the youth, show off their masks and maybe share a little bit about their process with making their masks and drumming while wearing their masks and having a picnic or a large kind of, potluck or something for the families. And the families would be invited to basically partake in the celebration and be able to watch their youth, interact with the masks and the drum and learn about what they discovered, and then complete with some farewells and compassionate goodbyes. So that was, each day had a different kind of intention. Day one was, bringing in curiosity and beginner's mind, and then day two bringing in qualities of loving kindness towards self and towards the community of youth. And finally, day three, bringing this quality of compassion and gratitude for having the opportunity to build community and to integrate with self and to discover things from a more internal place. So that was kind of the whole retreat within, a high level kind of description of the retreat, but ultimately with the intention of increasing awareness, self-understanding, and as I mentioned earlier, hopefully equipping them with some tools and some ways of coping with stress, internal and external stressors that might be contributing to mental health issues or problems that they're starting to arise. And ultimately to really build a nice community of support with other youth that are having the same, seeking kind of the same outcomes and supports. So yeah.
So now let's quickly also talk about, who could be the most kind of suitable candidate to be in this kind of wellness retreat. And also, how can families be still connected to this? Like, for example, are the youth are going to be staying overnight at the space? Maybe you can also talk a little bit more about the facility and where all of this will be taking place, what the role of families would be, what do they need to know ahead of time if this is something of their interest to participate in.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think again, in terms of who's most suitable, I think youth who are in a state of readiness, that see the merit or the importance of taking care of their mental health, because it has implications for not only their physical well-being, but their capacity to connect and be socially engaged, as well as in terms of just their overall sense of confidence and ability to be able to advocate for themselves and be able to express their needs and seek out supports and resources when they need it. So, I mean, we don't want candidates that are, in an active kind of state of, having a mental kind of breakdown or deterioration where they're unstable and they're not ready to engage in something like this, because this definitely could maybe potentially trigger things for youth that haven't maybe accessed other resources prior to, whether it's a medical doctor or psychologist, psychiatrist, somebody that can give them that additional support to stabilize them so that they're in a sound place to be able to engage in the retreat. So I think that kind of describes who would be the best candidates to engage in a wellness retreat like this. And I think the role of the families relative to the retreat would be, I mean, I think, Tara, we had discussed last year that it would be great if the families would find suitable accommodations close to where the retreat would be taking place, whether we do it here in my space here, or we find a community space, a public space, say in Windermere or in the town of Invermere, that we could actually have the retreat at. I mean, there is always the possibility of adapting, like I mentioned earlier, to making it just a single day retreat.
Okay.
And then it wouldn't, from a cost basis for the families, and they wouldn't have to maybe spend as much money potentially on accommodations and food and all those things, which drives the costs up for people. But there's lots of opportunity, I think, in terms of renting VRBOs or Airbnbs or hotels in the area, lots of campgrounds. So I think there's an opportunity there for also families to be able to connect with each other too,
Yeah.
through the retreat. And I think that's also an additional kind of win for families that might be feeling a little bit isolated, feeling like they don't know where to go to get the support they need for themselves as a family unit, and or for those youth in their families that are struggling with mental health challenges. So I think there's a great opportunity for us to also build a community of support for families that are needing to lean into each other and learn from each other in terms of that collective wisdom that we can draw from the experience of families that are in different stages of managing and dealing with mental health situation in their families.
Wonderful. Now let's talk about like the cost. I know we've been talking about trying to find different organizations to support us with the cost, but without that, because we tried to do this last year and we actually put it up front. This is how much it's going to cost
Yeah.
per youth to participate in this wellness retreat. So I think it would be good if we talk about all of that and also what we are working towards to hopefully make it affordable, maybe as a sliding scale fee, or just make it free and available to those who really cannot afford it, but they could be a great candidate and benefit from it, both the youth and the family.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's dive a little bit more into the cost of a wellness retreat like this.
Well, I think when we had kind of guesstimated what the cost would be to cover materials and time and resources and whatnot, and like I said, we mentioned about the insurance issues, um, and food, things like that. We came up with a number of about $500 per person. And I think one of the things that you suggested, Tara, was to reduce the fee if people registered early. So I think we had reduced it by $100 or something if people had registered by, I don't know what it was, June the 1st or whatever the deadline was. It was about a month prior to the actual deadline.
Yeah.
So if they registered within ample time, then there was a reduction in the actual registration fee by $100, I believe. So that's kind of what we had come up with in terms of a number to cover the costs for, and most of, our time, I believe, was going to be volunteered, or, we'd be compensated, like, not, in maybe in terms of an honorarium or something for our time, but I really don't think we were going to be expecting to get rich off of this this particular event or initiative. I think the idea was to be giving back and to be servant leaders in terms of giving back to the youth and families and community, and building those healthy supports that people need and continue to need. And in terms of making it affordable, I mean, I guess, yeah, we did talk about, looking at people's income and, could we potentially register them at a lesser rate based on what they could afford, what their income was. So there was that discussion, was the sliding fee schedule based on family incomes, I think, was one thing. And then, of course, we talked about, looking for donors, sponsors, things like that, that would potentially help support to cut the cost for the whole event. So we talked about that being a possibility. I know with other organizations, nonprofits, like the Canadian Center for Men and Families, I mean, running the MBSR program, the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, they had a donor that was covering the cost for the whole program.
Oh, great.
So that the men that registered didn't have to pay a fee. So that's an option here if we get a, a donor that can cover the cost for the whole event, or we look at, accessing grant monies and things like that, or donations from service clubs to kind of offset costs. So that's an option too, is, looking at grants, that we can potentially access to offset the costs a little bit. Sometimes I know people will pay via donation is another option we can do. Which, so then the donation would go back to the Loud Arts Society, to support, programming and potentially even, initiatives like this one.
Yeah.
So that's another possibility. So I think what we, I sit and I oscillate sometimes about, whether somebody should, whether it should be just pro bono, that people, unless there's somebody is in dire need or dire straits and really needs it, really wants to be, then, those are individuals. I mean, even with my own caseload, I have some pro bono clients, or they pay as they can or what they can afford to pay. So I do believe that there's still an importance that, some sort of financial contribution be made by the families, because they have a more vested interest. And they, in terms of following through with committing with the retreat and engaging their family member. So I think, yeah, once people have even a minimal number, or like I say, by donation, and have a minimum donation number that they can contribute, whether it's $50 or whatever we set as kind of the minimum. But I think, I'm certainly open to discussing and sharing other kind of ideas or strategies. I mean, I've even heard of, sat in on a training session, and there was a psychologist that shared with, within the context of the webinar, that her associates were actually setting up like a GoFundMe kind of account to help offset the costs for clients that needed to access therapeutic services. And so those clients that needed it were high needs, but didn't have the money, they could access or pay for their services through GoFundMe. So that's another kind of interesting model that, I don't know if, or then there's the other option of looking to see if there are families that can afford to pay, for their youth, but would be prepared to pay it forward and pay for another youth. So there's that whole idea as well that we could bring into the equation. Because I've had that happen too, where I've got clients that have prepaid for service packages and haven't used them all. So I'm going, well, that'll help offset the costs for clients that maybe have not paid or need the service and can't afford to pay. So there's that element that we could kind of weave into the kind of how we can make it affordable. Sometimes I think we need to learn to be creative and think outside of the box sometimes when it comes to funding and making things accessible and reducing barriers to access based on economics.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And what is the capacity of this wellness retreat? How many youth can we fit into this program?
Well, I don't want it. I think when I was chatting with Amanda and we were developing the curriculum or the program, and what we were going to offer, we didn't want to make it a really big retreat. We wanted to make it intimate. We wanted to make it a safe space for people to be able to engage with each other, share and be vulnerable relative to what their issues, their mental health issues and concerns. So I think, we'd like a minimum of maybe 6 potential candidates, and would have maybe up to a maximum of around a dozen.
Okay, good job.
So I think that's a nice number. I mean, we could push it to 15, but I wouldn't go any more than 15 people, because I think that then you start to lose that sense of intimacy or that sense of safety and trust, therapeutic trust. That's so important when people are processing or dealing with mental health issues and concerns. So I think because it is because people that are struggling with their own mental health are somewhat vulnerable. So you do have to make sure that they're feeling supported and being held within the space. So yeah.
Wonderful. So, just for the clarity, the participants in the wellness retreat will stay with their family during the night, so they will sleep in their own bed with their family, and then
Yeah,
they come back the next day for the kind of continuing the program with the different activities that is offered.
right.
Right? Okay. And the food is also covered by the family, or we will be offering that.
Well, I think what we're going to plan to do is we'd like to be able to extend the opportunity for like maybe lunch on the Saturday, and then we're looking at maybe snacks
Mhm.
um, on maybe Friday night, um, and maybe in the afternoon on Saturday as it runs a bit later. And then Sunday, the intention was to have the potluck celebration. So with encouraging, if we have a sponsor, great for
Yeah.
the celebration. If not, then we would request family members to bring, a favorite, potluck dish to, or the favorite dish to like the barbecue or whatever that we have,
Yeah.
and to be able to share with everybody else. So that would be the couple options we would have. And relative to, breakfasts and things like that, those, we would hope that everybody would make sure that their kids are fed, have a good breakfast before they come.
Yeah.
And then Saturday would be, because we're planning on, well, we do have the evening running into the evening. So, I mean, we potentially either could do a sponsored dinner for Saturday night, or the kids could have a break and spend some time with their family members and have dinner with their family on Saturday night. So that's something we'd have to kind of explore in terms of resources that we would have.
Great. Well, this sounds like a very exciting program. I would definitely, register that myself if I was a youth. I did participate in one uh, music kind of retreat a couple years ago, and it was a week long.
Mhm.
Very similar to this program, but everything was just music. So I stayed in a tent with my mother, and we prepared all the food ahead of time. And every morning, I had to wake up, go to our choir at 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock we would divide into our sectionals, and everyone will go into their group, and we practice until noon. And then we would go have lunch, come back and do another rehearsal with the entire group for a couple hours. And then during the lunch, even they had lunch and lesson. So other people would play different music. And then in the evenings, there were always concerts, things were happening. And at the end of the week, we had our own concert. The
Mhm.
entire week was just a great experience just to really focus on that one activity or one task. So we were supposed to play only music, listen to music, and just participate in all these musical activities. And the weather was okay. It did cooperate with us. It did rain a little bit, but it was still fine in the tent. It worked out, and it was just overall a very memorable experience. I would definitely do it again. And I hope that, this wellness retreat that we are planning would have the same kind of feeling and effect for those who would participate in it. And yeah, I hope that we can maybe post this video somewhere and get people to learn about it. We do have a couple more minutes left. If there's anything else that you would like to mention, Bonnie, go ahead.
As you're talking about your experience with your mom going on this music retreat, I mean, I've experienced much of the same thing going on, silent retreats
Oh,
or going on, I went on a retreat to just outside of Boston in a little community called Midford at an ashram. And it was focusing on learning mudras or mantras. And, we'd spend the whole morning just doing a lot of sound, warming up our voices, learning different chants and songs. And then, we'd have evening activities too, where we'd learn to play the harmonium and we'd go on walks and we'd do Kundalini. So, I mean, there's definite merit in engaging in a kind of a closed, a closed retreat or wellness kind of um, initiative, because I think that, there's such great connections that can be created. And I think one of the things that would be really nice to see that would fall out of something like this is that we could continue to build on that community, those community connections, and maybe have a monthly kind of gathering, even if it is on Zoom or something, to kind of continue to support the youth. And, we could do, an online type of activity that they could do while in community with the other youth that engaged at the retreat. So it's something that could build over time. I think you could build a really strong, supportive community of connection. And I mean, a lot of I don't know, the people that are kind of sharing their wisdom about mental health right now are seeing the significance of building these communities of support and connection, because it is a place where people can resonate with each other,
yeah,
and they can learn and support each other in these spaces that are very safe. And I think that's really critical, especially coming out of what the kids and youth have had to contend with during the pandemic, where a lot of those critical connections that support mental health and well-being were severed. So I think it's about rebuilding a lot of the connection and rebuilding the resiliency from the inside out.
absolutely. Well, thank you so very much, Bonnie. I think that was a great information session. I'm going to stop the recording here.
No worries.
All right. Thank you so much for watching this information session. If you're interested to learn more or have any questions about this program or would like to participate and register for it, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will be more than happy to walk you through it and provide more information. Thank you so much again, and goodbye.